Hello and welcome to Mothman Ministries. I'm your local preacher from the Black Lagoon, Reverend Pop Pop, and as you can see, we are here in the Mothman Ministries studio today. I really wanted to film this sermon outside, but God apparently had other plans. We will probably be filming here for the rest of the season because of how cold and wet it's going to be pretty much from here on out. Speaking of things to do in cold weather, I have started making bread as a hobby lately, and it has quickly become one of my favorite things to do. I love the heat of the oven, I love the way the gooey dough feels in my hands, I love the strength and effort of kneading it, and I love the ability to share it with the people I love when it's finished. I have found that this simple meditative act is when I feel closest to God. It feels like something natural, something humans have done for thousands of years. I remember when I was growing up, my grandfather lamented that kids today don't know how to change a tire. And I remember scoffing at him and saying, "Well, the world is changing, Grandpa. Get with the times." After all, modern technology has given us so many wonderful things. It's cured diseases, it's made movies and music, and the voices of so many people accessible to all of us. But when I went through my Quaker convincement, I began to look at what my grandfather said a bit differently. Don't get me wrong, I am entirely sure my grandfather's statement was meant with the same prideful arrogance we often hear from older generations about the incompetence of the youth. But maybe there is some value in that manual labor, in tradesmanship and craftsmanship and using one's hands to build, to fix, to create. Perhaps we should do these things, not because we're incompetent or lack common sense if we don't learn them, but because this is a valuable part of our humanity that we need to engage with for our own physical and mental well-being. There is a turn of phrase here in Appalachia that you hear quite often. It goes something along the lines of, "The problem with the world these days is that no one snaps beans or shucks corn on the porch with me anymore." And it's the kind of phrase that seems practically AI generated to produce an eye roll from anyone Gen X or younger. But what if there's some truth to that? Because really and truly, think about what you are doing in that moment. You are sitting with an older relative in a quiet area, enjoying the sunshine, feeling the warm breeze on your face, and engaging in a meditative act while preparing food for what will be, in many Appalachian families at least, a great deal of people. I think it's a bit arrogant of us as young, or at least younger, people to cast off the value of that act completely. I remember shucking corn with my grandmother when I was younger, and I remember what a loving act it always felt like. Sometimes we would talk, but many times we wouldn't. We simply sat in the silence with the company of one another, enough corn to feed a rather large family, and the presence of God. Dinner got made when it got made, and it was better to do it right than do it fast. Otherwise, you'd end up with stems or corn silk in your teeth. We live in a world built on speed and instant gratification. Hurry up. Find a job, work faster, hustle, find someone to have sex with as quickly as possible so you satisfy your libido and need for touch. It doesn't matter, they'll be gone the next day. Scroll, get the news, report on the news, feed the algorithm, play games while watching videos. Never let it be quiet. Never let yourself be too happy or sad or angry. Someone might see. Someone might tape you, but make sure you complain a lot. The algorithm loves a good complaint, especially if you have no solution to solve it. Make more money, buy more things. But do any of us feel satisfied? Do we feel whole? Do we feel fulfilled or successful? How can we? We live in a system built on infinite growth where the measure of your success is how big your house is or how fancy your car is or how pretty your wife is. It has nothing to do with happiness because there's no moment where there isn't something bigger to strive for. We cannot feel satisfied in a system that sees satisfaction as a sin in and of itself. And I think to some extent we kind of know this. I think that's why cottagecore aesthetics and tradwife content is so popular. I think there is, inside many of us, a desire to return. But return to what exactly? If you ask a conservative, they may say that they want to return to a time when men were men and women were women and everyone went to church and was God-fearing. And this desire to return to a mythic past has been a very real motivator for fascism in this country. We see many a meme shared by a page called A Return to Western Civilization or something of the sort, of a man in a flannel shirt next to his very white and possibly underage wife, smiling into the sun while holding 3 blonde babies. This imagery is pretty synonymous with fascism, to the point that if one simply stumbles upon a picture of a white baby with a phrase along the lines of, "Protect our children's futures," many of us have to do a double take to ensure that it isn't just fascist propaganda, and its simplicity in messaging is why it's so effective. There's nothing wrong with wanting a big family or a simple life, and fascists prey on this desire for a vague and nameless return in order to associate themselves with this concept entirely, claiming the left wants to take something from them, reject modernity, embrace tradition. At this point, we all know what that means. But leftists, progressives, our whole thing is moving forward. I think that's what makes this feeling so complicated and confusing to us. We, like the conservatives, have recognized that there's something wrong. That we have this innate desire to return to this vague and nameless something. So what do we do with that feeling? Do we ignore it? Rebel against it with fervor? Do we just go to Ren fairs and dress up in pretty dresses and sniff sunflowers? Do we move into the forest, in the woods, and become hermits? I mean, we could, but none of those things really get to the root of the issue, which is that modern society has taken some piece of our humanity, our connection with God. But what exactly? Where do we draw these lines? What should our relationship be to technology, to modernity, to a life that forces us to make thousands of unethical decisions every day without even knowing it? I've lived off the grid, and I've hitchhiked across the country with nothing but a backpack and a prayer. And while there was a lot of difficulty in that, it also gave me a unique perspective. And that is that there is freedom in a life of simplicity, that there is value in slowness, in rest, in the accomplishment that comes from hard work, ingenuity, and creativity. There is value in taking time to sing and dance and shuck corn on the porch with Meemaw. There is value in quiet. My first Quaker meeting was terrifying. I had no idea what to do. A whole hour of silence? What am I missing? What should I do with my hands? Will I cry or scream from sitting with my thoughts for that long? What if, God forbid, I fart? And this anxiety persisted for about a half hour, but then something wonderful happened. All of a sudden, a peace washed over me. A cozy, warm, soft feeling, and the voice of God in a way I'd never experienced before. In that moment, I knew what Jesus meant when he said, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light." I was performing an act of defiance in my society. I had made an active and conscious choice to spend 1 hour doing absolutely nothing. And I mean nothing. No talking, no scrolling, no listening to music, no consuming media, no working. Just sitting. I was blatantly refusing to take part in the hustle of the world around me. I was just enjoying the fact that I was still alive. I think sometimes we on the left have trouble with gratitude, with simplicity, because for so long, gratitude has been used as a tool of submission. Every time we wanted a living wage or access to health care, for an end to the wars, or to just be left alone to live our lives, there's always someone there to tell us that we should shut up and just be grateful for what we have. Our desire for justice and equality was framed as ungratefulness. And so we ran away from the concept entirely. And that's not good for us. Approaching life with gratitude does not mean giving up our fight for a just world, nor does it mean accepting the status quo. In fact, gratitude can make us more efficient in that struggle, because it makes it easier to see the things we have that other people lack and act accordingly. I have a roof over my head. My children have food. My home has running water. There are other people that do not have access to these things, and we should fight for their ability to have them. I am not a person who has to deal with racism or the threat of deportation. Other people do have to deal with those things, and we should fight to make things right for them. We should stand with them in that struggle. We should not just fight for ourselves and the things we want, but for the least of these to have the things we have already. There is a joy in simplicity, in giving up the rat race, in defining success not by what clothes you have or how big your house is, but in your happiness, in your resilience, in all the things that make you and your life special. It inspires you to create instead of consume and to find meaning in that creation. There's a joy in removing yourself from certain parts of empire and saying, I will not participate. I think that is what Paul was talking about when he talked about worldliness. It's these trappings of empire that keep us from joy. This unreasonable standard for success has really made a mess of things for all of us. But one group of people it has affected exceptionally negatively is young men. And when young men have a problem, it becomes all of our problem. Every once in a while, a particularly obnoxious 18-year-old with an Orthodox cross as his profile picture will slide into my comment section complaining about how women won't sleep with him and how immigrants are destroying the country. And all I can think is, dude, please get off the internet and join a monastery. Step away from the trappings of this world. Give up your desire for a woman you can treat like property or some imagined return to a mythical past. Go bake bread and make soap or something. You're obviously miserable, and it's that greed and lust that are making you miserable. The desire for that which you cannot have but feel you are entitled to. You are not a warrior with a battle to fight. You are not a crusader. You are a guy who has eaten nothing but Cheetos for 6 months, and you need to go outside. How much happier would these young men be if they got to live a life where they harvested wheat and tended cattle and gave up on this idea that in order to be a real man, you either have to go to war or be a millionaire? What if we told them that there is joy to be found in simplicity and even in solitude? And that by finding that joy and meaning, it may even make them more attractive to potential partners, or at the very least, give them the opportunity for brotherhood with other men. And when you look at even those most privileged by the society we live in, this doesn't work for them either. If you look at these incredibly rich men, they are not happy. They are weird. They're disconnected. They're not well adjusted. They don't care about other people, so other people refuse to care about them. This reliance on the world, on capital, on empire, on infinite growth, it's not working for anyone. This experiment has failed. For many of us, this is an exceptionally frightening time. We don't know what the future holds. We don't know how bad things are going to get. So have gratitude in the now. Remember all that is good in your life right now. Enjoy the sunshine, the bird song. Make yourself a nice cup of tea. Let these memories stick and take time to appreciate them, because those will be the things that keep you fighting through all of this. There is a joy in relying on God, in understanding what is and is not in your control. There is a joy in simplicity and in not being defined by what you wear or how expensive your material possessions are. There's a joy in the basics. And that means we should fight for the basics for everyone, because everyone has value. Your life, you watching this, you, whether you are someone who finds value in my work or who hates me entirely, whether you are rich or poor, tall or short, fat or thin, no matter your ability, no matter your race, gender, religion, or sexuality, no matter who you voted for or what you may have done in the past, you matter, and you deserve better. So as we move into the holiday season, where all the trappings of empire will be fully on display, let's step away from all the corporate greed and try to have gratitude for the simple things that matter most. Let's remember good friends and good food. Let's hold our families, whether by blood or by choice, close to our hearts. Let's learn to give gifts that we create with our own hands instead of buying them from a store. Let's redefine success. Let's redefine the holidays. Let's remember the simple things that give life meaning instead of all the baubles and worldly possessions we are told we need. Because the good news of Christmas isn't a new gift, it's an incredibly old one. It's love, which we need more of in the world. It's hope, which will get us through the long night we are about to face. It's peace and justice, which we must pursue with every fiber of ourselves. And it is joy, which reminds us of why we pursue that peace and justice. May God bless you this holiday season. Amen.